Virgin Islands police are investigating a deadly fall at a St. Thomas hotel. It happened Wednesday around 9 p.m. at the Marriott Frenchman's Cove. 911 got a call about a man who had fallen off a balcony of the hotel. When officers arrived, they say 24-year-old Rashad Hogue had died from his injuries. An autopsy is being performed. Major Crimes is investigating. Anyone who may have information on the incident is asked to call Virgin Islands police. Meantime, Virgin Islands police officers in St. Thomas nab a fugitive wanted out of the state of Texas. Officers with the Criminal Investigation Bureau arrested 30-year-old Stuart Lopez. He's wanted for a felony charge of theft of property and alleged theft that was between $30,000 and $150,000. His bond was set at $30,000, and he will eventually be extradited to Texas. The U.S. House has approved a bill to decriminalize and legalize marijuana at the federal level. Most states have already taken such steps, either for medicinal or recreational purposes. The House voted Friday 220 to 204. The bill would remove pot from the federal list of controlled substances and force courts to clear any related convictions. The Democratic measure faces an uncertain future in the 50-50 Senate. Some positive news now for the travel industry and for those looking to travel this spring or summer. The CDC is issuing new guidance, including for cruise ships. Amy Kiley has several updates.
COVID-19 no longer controls our lives.
That means the relaxation of more restrictions and guidance, including some related to travel. The CDC now says cruises don't pose an increased travel risk, but it suggests checking out individual ship health guidelines and getting fully vaccinated against COVID-19 first. The FDA just expanded the emergency use authorization for a second round of Pfizer and Moderna boosters for people 50 and older. The president now has his, but the CDC clarifies people don't need that extra shot to be considered up to date on their COVID-19 vaccinations.
If you're over the age of 50 or you're younger than that and have important comorbid conditions, you should get boosted.
In other travel news, 21 states are suing the Biden administration to end the transportation mask mandate before it expires April 18th. That's in addition to other lawsuits from groups of pilots and flight attendants. And travelers now can get pandemic information about the places they plan to visit in the U.S. or where they live on covid.gov. Amid these changes, experts say to be ready for the Omicron subvariant to increase cases.
In the last week, case rates in the United States have become flat. And if you and I speak next week at this time, we'll be talking about how they're now starting to rise.
Congress has to provide the funding America needs to continue to fight COVID-19. And if we fail to invest, we leave ourselves vulnerable if another wave of the virus hits.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Speaking of travel, U.S. airport security will become more gender neutral under new procedures announced by the Department of Transportation. Passports marked with an X for gender will be available starting April 11th. The X gender designation will also be available in the TSA PreCheck security program. TSA officers will also receive new instructions on screening along with new technology with the intent of making the screening process less invasive. The announcement was made to coincide with the Transgender Day of Visibility, which was celebrated every day on March 31st. In an extraordinary move to help the country combat rising gasoline prices, President Biden has ordered the release of 1 million barrels of oil per day from the nation's Strategic Petroleum Reserve for 6 months. It'll be the largest release of oil reserves in U.S. history, but Americans consume about 20 times that amount every day. Naomi Ruckup reports.
Hoping to drive down high gasoline prices, President Biden is tapping into the nation's vast oil reserves. He's ordering 1 million barrels of oil to be released each day from the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve for 6 months.
Our prices are rising because of Putin's action. There isn't enough supply. And the bottom line is, if we want lower gas prices, we need to have more oil supply right now.
As Russia's war on Ukraine rages in its second month, AAA says gasoline prices are averaging around $4.23 a gallon. That's up nearly 50% from a year ago. But how much will the release help, and when?
It will come down, and it could come down fairly significantly. It could come down the better part of anything from 10 cents to 35 cents a gallon. It's unknown at this point?
I think we get a little bit of relief here in April and May.
Oil and gasoline prices spiked after the U.S. and its allies slapped stiff sanctions on Russia. President Biden also blames pent-up post-pandemic energy demand, and other recent oil releases haven't done much to ease prices.
I used to go where I wanted to go, now I go where I have to go.
Patrick DeHaan is the chief petroleum analyst for Gas Buddy, the app that helps drivers find cheaper gas.
Naturally, there's a little bit of anxiety that comes with an announcement that we could be draining the reserve to several multi-decade lows.
DeHaan says other potential global crises such as China and Taiwan could put even more pressure on America's oil reserves.
The Biden administration says it will replenish its petroleum reserve, which is in a collection of underground salt caverns in Texas and Louisiana, when prices come down. Be prepared, chicken and eggs will cost you even more. In short, bird flu is to blame, but the disease, along with a host of other problems, is causing a nightmare for stores and shoppers. Already, grocery prices are hitting all-time highs as gas prices raise shipping costs, which in turn raise food costs. But bird flu complicates the problem significantly. Across the country, millions of birds have been destroyed in order to try to stop the flu's spread. But when that many birds no longer provide meat and eggs, the nation's supply drops and processors have to raise rates to keep up. Grocers say they're seeing big price hikes in just the past few days.
Across the board, boneless breasts are up significantly over the last 4 or 5 weeks, 80, 90 cents a pound. The drums, thighs, leg quarters have been holding fairly good, 15 to 20 cents a pound at most up.
Sanders says egg prices are also skyrocketing, up 90 cents a dozen in just the past 5 days. Seatbelts save lives, and new cars are equipped with alerts for drivers and passengers to buckle up. But a new report finds many of those alerts are not loud or long enough. Laura Podesta reports.
In this crash test video, the driver is wearing a seatbelt, but the backseat passenger is not and slams into the front seat, then is tossed to the roof. Government data shows in 2019, almost half of people killed in car accidents were not wearing a seatbelt.
The seatbelt is the most important safety feature that a vehicle has.
David Harkey is the president of the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety and says under current federal standards, seatbelt reminders only need to last a few seconds.
Our goal is to go well beyond the federal standards. We want to push that audible and visual signal to last 90 seconds and for it to be loud enough, let's call it a more annoying warning, that would get drivers to buckle up their seatbelt.
The IIHS also wants a visual reminder for backseat passengers. With that criteria in mind, the group tested 26 SUVs and only 2, the Subaru Forester and Subaru Ascent, received a good rating. 12 others were given an acceptable or marginal grade.
And almost half get a poor rating.
IIHS research shows persistent alerts can increase seatbelt use up to 34%.
Most of the changes that we're talking about with making these audible changes is software. And so it's not a hardware change. And so we think most of the automakers will be able to make this change quickly.
Harkey says those changes could save around 1,500 lives a year. Laura Podesta, CBS News, New York.
In other consumer news, here's a recall of something you might have in your fridge or your pantry, peanut butter. Hormel Foods has announced a limited recall of its Skippy peanut butter due to possible metal shavings in the jars. The company announced the recall of 9,353 cases of Skippy peanut butter, saying some jars may contain a small fragment of stainless steel from a piece of manufacturing equipment. Hormel says they've received no reports of consumer concerns and no other Skippy food products are involved with this voluntary recall. They say the ones that are recalled all carry best if used by dates between May 4th, 2023 and May 10th, 2023. Consumers are asked to return the jars to the store for an exchange or contact the company or just toss the peanut butter out. The possible contamination was detected by the manufacturing facility's internal systems.